Hi, loves, and welcome back. Have you ever heard of the word interoception? Most people haven't, and that's not an accident. Interoception, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong or trip over it a couple times because it is going to be said a few times in this episode, and I am just recently becoming familiar with saying this word myself. But interoception is not mystical. It isn't trendy. It isn't spiritual jargon. It's simply the nervous system's ability to sense what's happening inside you and treat that information as real data. Your breath, your tension, your gut, your heartbeat, the quiet tightening, the subtle pull, the internal no that arrives long before you have words. And the moment you actually listen to that signal, something very interesting happens. The entire game starts to fall apart. Because interoception is the moment your body goes, wait, I hate this. Why am I optimizing misery? Who decided these rules? Why is exhaustion normal? That's not a mindset problem, and it's not burnout. It's not you being too sensitive. It is orientation returning. And that is a system level threat. What interoception actually is, I'd like to try to define this clearly and cleanly. It's not thinking about your feelings. It's not analyzing sensations. It's not scanning yourself for what's wrong. Interoception is tracking. It's your nervous system continuously noticing internal signals as they change and staying with them without overriding, suppressing, or narrating them away. Sensation turns into the emotion, and the emotion then turns to meaning. And it goes exactly in that order. The body leads, the mind translates. That's it. No affirmations, no reframes, no bypass. Just signal. And here's the part that most people do not realize. The capacity exists in every human. It is not a gift. It's not special. It's not bestowed. It's native. What's different isn't who has it. It is who was allowed to keep access to it. So why isn't this taught? Interoception isn't centered in schools. It's not emphasized in most therapy. And it's barely mentioned in mainstream self-help. And again, not by accident. Because interoception decentralizes authority. It says the primary data source is inside you. And that doesn't work very well for systems that rely on compliance, speed, productivity, external validation, someone else naming meaning for you. You can't easily grade felt truth. You can't standardize internal signal. And you can't monetize it forever. So once someone trusts their body, they stop outsourcing orientation. And that changes everything. Western culture privileges top-down cognition, which is just a polite way of saying we're living inside of a real-life Monopoly game. You're taught the rules. You're taught how to optimize moves. You're taught how to win. What you're not taught is how to notice. My body hates this board. Interoception is the moment you realize you're playing a game you never consented to. And the system doesn't call that wisdom. No. It calls that laziness, lack of motivation, resistance, failure to cope. But your body is not malfunctioning. No, what it's doing is telling the truth. So here's where I'm going to make this a little personal, but I'm not going to make it dramatic. For me personally, clarity has never arrived through comfort. Emotion intense, environment volatile, relational fields unstable. That is when I'm actually the most clear in myself. I am the most me. And it's not because I like chaos. And it isn't because I seek danger. It's because when stakes are real, false noise falls away. The system goes, now. Only now. So coherence locks in. That's been the theme of my entire life. I didn't learn interoception through definition, through meditation, or training. I learned it because I had no other choice. When external reality was unreliable, the body became the only compass that worked for me. So my system learned to stay organized, even when everything else was not. That doesn't make me special. It makes me accurately adapted to the conditions I grew in. For decades, my system ran hot, always tracking, always sensing, always online. And I didn't realize how much effort that actually was. Because when endurance is your baseline, it doesn't feel like effort. It just feels like being alive. So it took a long time to realize I hadn't learned rest. I'd learned endurance. And this phase of my life, right now, has been about shedding that. Not losing coherence. Not dulling the signal. Decommissioning pressure as the price of clarity. And letting truth arrive without collapse. That's not burnout. That's maturity. So why does interoception feel threatening? Because interoception doesn't ask, how do I win the game? Instead, it asks whether the game itself makes sense for my body. Interoception isn't just sensation. It's our true north. And that is the threat. Because once you trust internal signal, you stop normalizing chronic exhaustion, constant urgency, relational override, productivity at the cost of aliveness. You don't need rebellion. You just stop consenting. Quietly. Cleanly. And systems built on override, they don't love that. I'd like to be very clear about this last thing. Interoception is not about calming your nervous system so that you can tolerate more nonsense. It's not about regulating yourself so that the system doesn't have to change. And it's not about being zen in unjust conditions. Sometimes interoception says no. Sometimes it says that's enough. Sometimes it says leave. And that is intelligence. People sometimes describe me as patient, unfiltered, tolerant of ambiguity and paradox. And that didn't come from virtue. It came from necessity. When forcing clarity was dangerous, you learn to wait. When intrusion caused harm, you learn consent. When certainty wasn't available, you learn to stay present with not knowing. That's the posture interoception requires. And yes, my patience has changed. It didn't disappear. It stopped being misused. I have endless patience for emergence. And I have zero, or very little, we'll say, for performance. So if you're listening to this and something in you feels seen, or if your body has been whispering, this doesn't fit, this piece is wrong, this game is costing me myself, well, that's not failure. That's your signal. And you don't need to fix it. You don't need to optimize it. You don't need to explain it away. Just notice it. Stay with it. Let meaning arrive after sensation. That's interoception. And once you listen, really listen, you may find that nothing is wrong with you at all. You just finally stopped ignoring the part of you that always knew.